Welcome to the Partial Historians.
We explore all the details of ancient Rome.
Everything from political scandals, the love affairs, the battles waged, and when citizens turn against each other. I'm Dr. Rad.
And I'm Dr. G. We consider Rome as the Romans saw it, by reading different authors from the ancient past and comparing their stories.
Join us as we trace the journey of Rome from the founding of the city.
Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of the Partial Historians. I am Dr. G.
And I am Dr. Rad.
And together we are going to sally forth into the year that was 390 BCE.
Oh, this is going to be such a big one, Dr. G. I've already said it. I predict multiple episodes in our future.
I mean, I hope so, because I feel like I haven't finished doing all of the reading for this episode. And if we're doing it in just one, I don't think there's too much to pack in. It's not going to happen.
Could not agree more, Dr. G. Could not agree more. Now, just to do a quick recap of where we were from 391 BCE, because I feel like these years are very tied together, 391 and 390. So in 391, we talked about the fact that the Gauls are really making their presence felt in the northeast of Italy specifically. And this is really something that's been happening kind of behind the scenes, I guess, for our podcast for centuries by this point in time. Because the Celts, of course, or the Gauls, whatever you want to call them, we're talking about a really huge culture that has been spreading out all throughout all sorts of areas of Europe. And whilst there are, of course, local differences because we're talking about mostly tribal sort of people, the thing that seems to unite them is certain aspects of their cultures like language, maybe some art styles, maybe things like burial practices. Unfortunately, most of the written evidence we have for these cultures comes from people who are outsiders, like the Greeks and the Romans. But essentially, for centuries, they have been spreading and spreading and spreading. They've been coming into contact with the Celts. They've been coming into contact with the Etruscans. But around this time, in the early 4th century BCE, things seem to have taken a turn. Now, this may be because, as I said, whilst we tend to refer to them as this sort of homogenous group like the Celts, we are talking about different groups that are on the move for different reasons. And we know from Livy's account, even though it might not be perfectly accurate, that there are different groups who are migrating at different times. And one of the last groups, he says, that cross over the Alps and into northern Italy is the Senones. Yes, and this group apparently landed on the doorstep of an Etruscan place called Clusium last time we spoke.
Yes. Dramatic. And apparently the Romans are friends with the people of Clusium, which is a surprise to us all as Roman historians, because Clusium is deep inside Etruscan territory in a way that means that it's quite far from places like Veii, which is that southernmost Etruscan city that Rome has now just taken a few years before. And the people to the north of Veii, directly to the north, far more south than Clusium, have been like, we don't want a bar of these Romans. So the idea that somehow Rome has springboarded over a whole bunch of people who don't care about them to be friends with the population of Clusium defies historical belief.
Well, I feel like that's just what they're telling the Celts. You know, they don't want to have a lack of unity, I suppose, in the face of the Celts, because after all, they're not friendly enough to send an army at this point in time. When the people of Clusium come to the Roman Senate for help, they say, no, we are not going to send an army. And after all, we talked about this last episode. Why would people this far north come all the way down to Rome to ask for help? Is it because the Celts really are just like on a rampage and they feel like the Romans, being untouched, are the best people to ask? This might be where that conflict with Volsinii comes into it because the Romans have been in that region relatively recently, and maybe that's what put them in the mind of the people from Clusium. But to be honest, most modern historians think that this is crap.
I was going to say, even the question about the Volsini, I feel it's a bit problematic right now.
100%.
That's fine. That's
Yes.
fine. Let's not let historical potentials and probabilities get in the way of a great story that the Romans are pretty sure they want to tell us about this.
Exactly. Instead, we'd rather listen to their side of things, which is that the people of Clusium come to them for help when the Gauls arrive and start attacking them. And they're like, help, help. There are these strange, long-haired people with odd weapons that look something like a sword who are attacking us. We just don't know what to do. Will you help us? And they say, we're not going to send an army because we're not that close. Boundaries. However, we will send ambassadors who will say to the Gauls, talk to the hand. Just back off.
Yeah, you don't want to get involved with this. You don't know what you're going to be dealing with. Watch out.
Oh, you're telling us you want a piece of this action?
I don't know if you've noticed, but I'm a Fabian, and that might not mean anything to you, but it should. It really should.
We're fabulous in a terrifying way.
Ugh.
Yeah. So we've got this situation. And on top of that, there have been some signs, Dr. G, that the Romans really should have been paying attention to, especially before they send a somewhat aggressive embassy off to Clusium. There have been multiple problems in the last couple of years, like the plague. That could be a sign that the gods are angry with you. We've had the censor dying in office, maybe being replaced incorrectly. We've had voices, divine voices.
Ignored.
Booming out in the middle of the night and talking to plebeians and then ignored. It's not been great. And then on top of that, the one man that could have saved everyone from this Celtic attack has been exiled for no very good reason.
Are we talking about Camillus?
Oh, am I talking about Camillus? Who else could I possibly want to even talk about, Dr. G? He is just that much of a freaking hero at this point in time.
The things that the Romans value, they really have me questioning everything.
I know. So Rome, whether it recognizes it or not, is in a tight spot at this moment in time. Now, before we get into the magistrates, I did leave us on a bit of a cliffhanger at the end of 391. I didn't give you the full exchange between these ambassadors, the three fabulous Fabians, and the Senones who are attacking Clusium. So I thought that might be a good lead-in to the magistrates for 391, and I think you'll see why when I get to the end of this exchange. Are you ready?
I am ready.
Excellent. So, part of the issue with this whole situation is that the fabulous Fabians, this is where they transition into the foolish Fabians, Dr. G, because they're meant to be approaching the Gauls in a peaceful, diplomatic manner, but all this trouble just gets swept under the rug.
Easy does it, boys. Easy. Back off. You know, you go your way, we'll go ours.
Unfortunately, Livy describes them as more like Gauls than Romans, which means that they are dialing the aggression up to 11.
Wow.
Yeah.
Livy.
Yeah. So basically, when they extend their initial offer, which is, look, these guys are our friends, we're the Romans, pretty awesome, just, move on your way, please. The Gauls say, look, we've never heard of you guys before either. You might not know us, but we don't know you. However, we acknowledge that you must be someone impressive if the people of Clusium are turning to you for help, because we're obviously ferocious warriors.
As you can see by our manner of dress, i.e. naked.
Exactly. We're all born naked, and the rest is drag, Dr. G. Now, the Gauls say, we're not going to turn away from this offer of peace that you Romans have put forth on behalf of this Etruscan city. We understand the idea of seeking the diplomatic route and not just jumping straight to warfare. We appreciate that you guys didn't just come here with an army. So here's the proposition that we have for you. The people of Clusium must give us some of their land. After all, the reason that the Gauls are here is that they need it.
Yes, we are land poor. We require some of your finest grass. Thank you.
See, this is where it contradicts like the other stories that we've heard, right? About why the Senones have turned up here. You know, there are all these reasons that we're given for, you know, Celtic migration in this time period, but realistically, it probably does come down to the fact that A, they do tend to have been a bit of a migratory people. They've spread over a very large part of Europe already. It just seems to be their way. But yeah, they're probably looking for resources of varying kinds.
They've done this before. This is not their first time around the traps. They're like Clusium. It's just the last on a long list of people who have fallen before us.
That's if it even happened, because after all, there's nothing in the archaeological record to support this.
Shh.
Now, they point out that apparently the people of Clusium had more land than they could possibly farm at this point in time anyway. So they're like, it would hardly be, you know, it's not much of a wrench. Just give us some land for crying out loud.
You're just sitting on it. Wasteful.
Yeah, exactly. So the Gauls want to hear the response of the people of Clusium in front of the Romans, because I guess the whole idea is that the Romans are meant to be kind of like
the neutral
referees.
parties or something.
Yeah, exactly. And if their offer is rejected, then it's on like Donkey Kong. There's going to be a fight right then and there, because it's basically like them being bought off. You know, they're like, if you can just give us the land, then it's peace. But if you don't,
or if you don't give us the land, I'll break your legs.
Yeah.
If you give us the land, it's going to be fine.
And then they say to the Romans, on top of that, we would like you to stay and watch, not just because you seem to be some sort of neutral referee in this scenario, but also because we would like you to see, if war is the result, just all this awesomeness. Touch this skin, baby. Touch all of this skin. It's going to
you
be
haven't
quite
done
the
war
show.
until you've done Gaulish war.
Yeah, they're basically saying, you don't understand. We are the best, like Celtic warriors. Nobody can beat us. We'd like you to stay and watch the show.
You're surprised that we're here, and what I can tell you is we got here by winning.
Yeah. They said, you haven't heard of us? Well, baby, our name will be on your lips after this demonstration. The Romans, of course, completely unimpressed.
Well, this is, given what we know about the Romans.
Yeah. And this seems to have hit them the wrong way, as you can imagine with the Romans. They're like, I'm sorry, just who the hell do you guys think you are? Marching in, demanding land from the people who live there and threatening war if they refuse? That is just rude. What the hell are you guys even doing in Etruria anyway? So things are starting to get a bit...
Okay, it's getting heated. Okay, it's going to turn into a pub fight very soon.
Yeah. And this is where we get the very famous response from the Gaulish people. They say, I'll tell you where our right comes from. Right here. And this is where it'd be great if this podcast was actually a video, because I could pull out a sword. They point to the tip of their sword and they're like, this is how we come to be in Etruria. This is our freaking passport, mate. And they say, all things belong to the brave.
Ooh, I like that.
Oh, yes.
The Romans are going to steal that one for sure.
Absolutely they are. So tempers are running high for everyone at this point in time. The Etruscans, the Romans, the Gauls, they are all at fever pitch. So naturally, they all race for weapons, because when you're angry, it's best to take action immediately.
Yes.
Yeah.
Don't think about it too much. Respond with violence.
Definitely not. So a fight ensues. Now, this might have been expected, if not for the fact that the Fabians join in the fight on the side of the people of Clusium.
Okay, well, this is perhaps not surprising that they would make that choice, given that they'd been called in by Clusium in the first place. But that does void their position of apparent neutrality.
Yes, this is apparently breaking a very big rule. In fact, my translation in Livy calls it the law of nations, which
Oh.
makes it seem incredibly formal for the early 4th century BCE.
Guys, I don't think we've got nations yet, and we're not going to have them until the 19th century.
Nonetheless, what they have done here is seen as breaking a very sacred trust. They are meant to be there as neutral observers in a way. You know, they're meant to be there as diplomats. They're not meant to be getting involved in any war.
Yeah,
There's been no formal declaration.
The fight is between the Gaulish people and the people of Clusium. And it's like, it just so happens that the Romans are there today, but they're not involved. And for the Romans in particular, but it sounds like Livy is maybe extrapolating this out to all peoples of this era, is that there is a sacred element to warfare and the process of going to war. And the Romans have not done all of the appropriate steps to suggest that they would be the people picking up swords.
Absolutely. I mean, how many times have we been through the way that the Romans declare war, right?
Like, it's laborious, and they've done none of the steps. They've taken no federales with them. This is a terrible idea, foolish Fabians.
Exactly. So this is just another instance of arrogance on behalf of the Romans. So before we were talking about the arrogance of, say, the military tribunes with consular power, ignoring the plebeian who came to them with the divine warning. Now we're seeing the arrogance of the Fabians joining in. This is exactly the kind of stuff that is seen as inviting doom in to the city. Because not only do the Fabians join in, because that might not have been a big deal if they'd like hung in the back and just shouted moral support, but they do it in a very obvious way. Apparently, they make sure that they're standing right in the front so that they're very obvious. And then one of the brothers in particular, Quintus Fabius, charges right out, gets into a fight with one of the Gallic leaders and kills him.
Oh, awkward.
Yeah. Not only does he kill him, he then stops and decides he's going to despoil the body right then and there.
Right in front of everybody.
Right in front of everybody.
While I'm eating my salad.
In public? You're going to take the weapons in
What?
public? Now, I guess it's because it makes it incredibly obvious. Like in the heat of battle, somebody gets killed. People might not notice. Yeah, you don't have time to stop and clock who it is. However, the fact that he then stops and is like, I'm going to despoil the body right here, right now.
Cover me. I need to despoil someone. Oh.
Word very quickly spreads throughout the Celtic forces that it was a Roman who was responsible for this very prominent Gallic chieftain being killed. So the Gauls decide that they're going to retreat, but this is not over. They now have the Romans on their list. Some of the younger Gauls are saying, let's just head to Rome straight away. Let's settle this right here, right now. It actually makes me feel like there are kind of like young patricians amongst the Gauls as well as in Rome itself, because we then have the older Gauls saying, no, let's do this officially. Let's send some envoys. Let's make it clear to Rome why we are upset. Let's use our words. Make sure that there is like a formal process happening here. The Romans need to give us these 3 Fabian brothers because they have violated this law of nations, which again, I find hilarious that the Celts are now talking in these terms, but sure, they've done something wrong and they want these guys handed over to them, presumably to, I don't know, torture and kill them.
Just ask the hard questions, you know. All right. Well, this is really interesting. So it sounds to me very much like Livy has vastly more detail on this initial incident that happens between the Gauls and the Romans. because these ideas are coming up a little bit in other sources, but definitely not to this level of detail. Like Clusium is mentioned quite a lot, and we know that it is in northern central Italy on the west side of the Apennines, which makes sense because the Gaulish people, from what we understand, have come over the Alps and are now occupying the whole area between the Alps and the Apennines.
Yeah.
So that whole Po Valley region is part of where they've set up, and now they're moving south, it would seem. These 3 ambassadors sent to Clusium, recorded in just about every source, and identified as Fabians very frequently. Also, Quintus Fabius is definitely also identified as the one who kills the Gaulish leader, which causes so much upset. And that comes up in Appian. And then we have the emergence of a questionable figure who is called King Brennus.
Yes, this is the supposed leader of the Senones. Many questions raised about the name. It seems to be perhaps a retrojection.
It does. We do have a Brennus that is in the historical record from a sort of a century, 150 years in the future, and we think that this is a retrojected name. Nevertheless, they've got a leader, so that's good.
And you know what? It's pronounceable, Dr. G. I'll take it. Brennus. I can say it.
Brennus.
Yeah.
Brennus. What are you up to now, Brennus? Well, and this issue with Rome having done completely the wrong thing in this situation where they were supposed to be acting neutrally allows the Gauls to take the upper hand from a sort of sacred perspective and a legal perspective. But that doesn't mean that they're not against intimidatory tactics.
Sure.
So they send their biggest, strongest, most imposing Gauls as their delegation of ambassadors to Rome, just to sort of be like, this is what we all look like. This is what it would be like if you were on the battlefield with us. We only eat grain and terrible beer, and we're fighting fit and ready for anything. Are you sure, Rome, that you still want to uphold this insult against us?
Yeah, well, that's exactly where Livy takes this. When the Gauls voice their unhappiness, whilst the Senate put their head in their hands and go, oh my God, the Fabians, they do not condone what those guys did by any means. But I guess they are aware of what would happen to them if they handed them over to the Gauls for punishment. They're so elite, the Romans cannot possibly agree to this request. But the Senate also in Livy don't want to be blamed if by sheltering these privileged upper class little twats, they don't want to be blamed if a war results because they have taken the side of people who clearly done the wrong thing. And so in Livy's account, they actually seek the opinion of the people.
Interesting. So in terms of, we're getting into the territory now where in my source material, and I'm so excited for this, the note in the Lerb edition of Diodorus Siculus for this year, because we're heading straight into this 391-390 crossover, is that Diodorus Siculus seems to be the most robust and accurate of the sources that we have for this time period.
Unbelievable. How did it come to this?
So while I appreciate what Livy might be saying, I'm going to hold on to the nuanced hope that Diodorus Siculus is going to come through for me with these details, because he does say that the Senate gets together about this issue. They understand the severity of it, and they do agree to hand over the Fabians because there's really no other path out from this. There's been a grave offense against the gods as much as anything else. The right thing to do is to hand these guys over. It's not going to be pleasant. The Fabians aren't going to be happy, but it needs to be done. And then the father of the 3 brothers who were the ambassadors stands up and says, I am not going to let you send all 3 of my sons off to the Gauls. He gets in front of the people and persuades the people to overturn the senatorial decision, which Diodorus tells us is the first moment in Rome's history where the people go against a senatorial suggestion. because what we understand about how the Senate operates is that they don't provide a legal avenue for anything. What they do is they provide advice. It's just that you always follow their advice.
Kind of like advice while staring down the barrel of a gun.
Yeah. I'm going to suggest to you that you really want to do this thing right now. And you look at the shotgun, point it at your face, and you're like, it's a great plan and I'm on board.
I love it. I love everything about it.
Yeah, I think what you've done here is really unique and special. This is not one of those moments. It seems to be something that divides the people as well and creates a division moment for them where they potentially go against the Senate for the very first time. And I find this a fascinating moment for the Romans to be having in their internal politics, because they've been fraying around the edges for a little while. Despite their success with Veii, they've been on struggle street in terms of the pestilence and what appears to be their economic issues that are just ongoing. It's just not a great time. And now we've got this internal wavering between how do the mechanisms of tradition of governance operate. And now things are going to get worse for Rome.
Absolutely, because this is where I lead into the magistrates for 390, regardless of what we think exactly happened. And I love your account. That to me kind of actually makes more sense. And we have seen instances like this before where a man has gone before the people and, begged them to spare his children based on the achievements of his family, the contributions they have made, et cetera, et cetera. This is not the first time that kind of thing would have happened. In Rome, that kind of stuff mattered. So that kind of makes sense to me. I give you points, Diodorus Siculus. But regardless of what happened or how the Fabians were saved, what really tips things over and how we lead into the magistrates for 390 is that not only are the Fabians spared the fate of being handed over to King Brennus, but they somehow end up as military tribunes with consular power in 390 BCE. This is where I would love to talk about who the magistrates are, Dr. G.
Well, I'm glad you've brought it up. So we've got this idea that in some of our other sources, Appian in particular mentions this idea is that not only does Rome acknowledge the wrongdoing of the Fabii, but instead of handing them over to the Gauls, they refuse to do that and then go on to elevate those three Fabians into the position of military tribunate with consular power for the next year, so that in the next instance of violence, it is legitimized and anything is now possible. They're going to arm those guys to the hilt to go back to Clusium or wherever the Gauls happen to be and rightfully run them through with swords, rather than, whoops, I was supposed to be an ambassador. Oh, my bad. I'm wearing the wrong hat right now. Let me just change that.
I was just trying to stretch my arm with a spear in it, and the spear just kind of fell and launched itself through your groin. Sorry about that.
Yeah. I mean, it was an accident. Let me just put on my military tribune with consular power hat for a moment. Oh.
Unbelievable. And understandably, of course, the Gauls see this as, hello, wound, meet salt.
Yeah, the Gauls are not happy about that. Fair enough. I wouldn't be either. But I think this means we are now officially up to 390 BCE.
We are officially in 390 BCE now.
Well, we do have a range of magistrates to get through. So let me take you on a journey. You can guess the first three military tribunes with consular power. It's Quintus Fabius Ambustus, Caeso Fabius Ambustus, and Numerius Fabius Ambustus.
The foolish Fabian.
And one of them still with like a sore hand from all the stabbing. Like, ow. We may also have Quintus Sulpicius Longus, Quintus Servilius Fidenas, who we have previously seen as a military tribune, and Publius Cornelius Maguginensis. So, all of these names should be familiar except for Longus, who I don't think has appeared before. They're all patrician, keeping in that grand old idea of, sure, military tribunes with consular power is open to the plebeians, but nobody ever puts themselves forward. I don't understand.
Well, I love actually the fact that Livy says about the election of the Fabians that wealth and power mattered even more to the people, and that's why they got elected.
Oh.
Livy, what? What are you talking about? What has the conflict of the orders even been about? It's like all these moments where he talks about how the plebeians get swoony whenever they're confronted with the very bluest of blood.
I just go weak at the knees.
Yeah.
I'm all gorgonzola dolce. Ooh. Yeah, look, it's tough. We also have, surprise, surprise, a dictator.
I don't know if we should say his name. I feel like it ruins it.
And we'll leave that for you to guess, everybody. No, it's Marcus Furius Camillus.
Ah, he's back again.
It's his big ticket year. His master of the horse is Lucius Valerius, we think, Publicola. Now, he was previously a military tribune in 394. We have seen this guy. He's got a little bit of experience. Obviously, he likes horses. Or, because we're not sure, it could be Lucius Valerius Potitus. Also a man of great experience, was consul in 393, 392, and military tribune in 414, 406, 403, 401, and 398.
Experienced people either way.
Whew, yeah, and we don't know which one. It's definitely a Valerius.
Well, and this would kind of make sense because we've talked about the fact that it's possible that the Fabians are showing up in here because of an earlier source Fabius picked up. And therefore, maybe we've got some families sometimes being inserted into the history of this period, maybe when they actually didn't have anything to do with it. It's hard to know. Or exaggerating their role, perhaps. Although I don't know why you'd want your ancestors to be these three douchebags. But also with the Valerii, there is also an earlier source from this clan as well that Livy sometimes is relying on. So again, it would kind of make sense to see Valerii here as well. Not that I'm saying that they're making it up, but again, to highlight their family's role in this to make sure that it's remembered, perhaps it makes sense.
That's right. I mean, if you can't be Camillus, attach yourself to him very tightly.
Ride those coattails, baby.
Literally. We also have some pontifices named, which I think it's always a good time for me when we get in. We've got some named religious folk.
I thought you'd be excited.
I am, but I'm not so sure if I'm excited about the names. A potential Marcus Folius Flacinator. Oh, the Flacinator.
A priest who's a Flacinator? I haven't heard of such a thing.
He's just flacking around here and there. Anyway, his name comes up quite a few times in different sources, so it seems to be real. We also have another person, Gaius or Kaiso Fabius Dorsuo, which does not sound like a Roman name to me.
Very strange.
But let us not ask too many questions about that.
And
there are some various spellings on that as well.
Yeah.
And a patrician, yeah. Well, he is a Fabian, so I suppose he has that going for him.
I know, but it's such a weird cognomen.
It is. What is going on? Not entirely sure. We also have a reference to an augur or a pontificate. Not entirely sure. Quintus or Servilius Priscus or Structus Fidenas. This is how little we know his name. His name is Servilius. All the other names seem to be up for question. Servilius, son of Publius, who is succeeded by somebody who we know even less of their name. It might be Furius, Fusus, but what's their praenomen? No idea. And we have some other notables as well who aren't in magisterial positions, but we should probably just keep an eye out for. A guy called Quintus Caedicius, Brennus, obviously, of the Gauls, Cominius Pontius, and Marcus Manlius, also known as Marcus Malleus.
Macho man.
Oh, yeah. The things he's going to do. Just you wait.
I love it.
These are the folk that I have on deck for this banner year of 390 BCE, also known in popular culture as the sack of Rome by the Gauls.
Ooh, there we go. Well, Livy is definitely leaning into the drama of this moment. You know, I said before when we were talking in a previous episode that he kind of skimmed over what seems to be a fairly major moment for Rome, and that is Camillus's supposed trial and his exile and all of that kind of stuff. But that's because he wants to get to this moment, Dr. G. I mean, wants to. I'm sure it was shameful, but he certainly wants it to balance out his narrative.
I just don't know why you wouldn't draw emphasis to all of the things that goes wrong for Camillus, because surely that will put everything on a slightly different balance in the end in terms of his narrative.
Don't worry.
But I don't know where he's going with his narrative because I haven't read him. So
Camillus will get his moment in the sun again. Don't you worry. So Livy is definitely building up a sense of impending doom as we get closer and closer to the sack of Rome by the Gauls. And the way that he tells the story of 390, it's very much a big narrative. That's the sense that we get. So Rome is now facing this enemy that they know almost nothing about, which is a very unusual situation for them because they are generally fighting people that they can throw stones at.
Yeah, the guy next door, that guy, I know how he swings. I've seen it a million times
Exactly.
And I want my sandals back.
How many times have we traded sandals? It's getting crazy. Now, unfortunately, this whole magistrate list that we've just gone through highlights a very odd choice for Rome at this moment. So they're facing an unknown enemy with strange weapons.
Mm.
And yet they don't choose a dictator straight away. Even Livy thinks this is cray-cray.
Guys, you got an enemy on the doorstep, and what are you doing about it? Military tributes with consular power will do.
Yeah, let's have about 6 or 7 or 8 guys in charge. That seems legit.
Could it be that they're not expecting the Gauls to do what the Gauls do?
Look, it's possible. And this is where I might highlight something that is actually going to make your Meanwhile in Sicily segment very worthwhile for everybody. So we have had this whole backstory about the foolish Fabians, the people of Clusium, etc., etc. Some modern historians, however, have suggested that it is actually an accident of history that the Gauls, perhaps the Senones, end up on Rome's doorstep. That, in fact, they had been hired to act as mercenaries by the tyrant Dionysius. Wait, is it Dionysius?
Dionysius of Syracuse.
Dionysius of Syracuse. That they've been hired by this guy to be mercenaries whilst he's trying to, I don't know, fight the people of Krypton down in southern Italy.
We're going to have a pincer movement. Essentially, what's going to happen is you move from the north while I come up from the south. And what we'll do is we'll wedge them and then we'll steal all the Roman pizza, go home.
Yeah, so maybe they were actually on the move. And the reason that they were heading, so far south is because they have a job to do. And the sacking of Rome is just something that they happen to do on the way, that there's actually no beef in particular.
Not fussed, as long as
really.
I get paid.
Not really. And that might explain why the Romans don't automatically pick a dictator at this moment in time, because whilst they might be aware that there are more aggressive Gauls than usual on the Rome, causing some problems, they might not have been anticipating an attack. You see, it all adds up, Dr. G.
Well, and I think from a practical level, if I'm putting what if I pretend I was a military historian hat on, which I'm definitely not. So this could go badly. Military historians, please contact me and comment on this episode. But where Clusium is, we're talking a good sort of, I think about 100 kilometers north of Rome. So
Definitely,
in terms of what is going on geographically, for the Gauls to move as far south as they do, to come to Rome's doorstep, which, spoilers, everybody, that's what's going to happen. They have to have gone through substantial amounts of Etruscan territory, plus other Italic peoples who are in contact and live in those areas as well. And to basically have had the agreement that they can move through those lands freely and take what they need. Because we are told, Diodorus Siculus tells us that the Gaulish force equates to, by the time it gets to Rome, is about 70,000 strong.
Yes.
We are not talking about a small band of nude Gaulish warriors. We're talking about 70,000 people armed coming through substantial tracts of Italian land to get to Rome. And to do that, they would have had to strip the land bare just from a logistics perspective to keep themselves alive. How do you eat? How do you fuel? What are you going to do? How do you take all of your stuff with you? People are either letting you through and letting you strip part of their fields, being like, I don't want to encounter those guys. Please just take what you need and go.
And for God's sakes, put some clothes on.
Yeah, please. Also, this tunic, I made it just for you. And the idea that nobody would be resisting them, I think, is part of the bigger question that I have about the narrative at this point. Because if they're not encountering any resistance, what does that tell us about how things are going for Etrurians by and large across the board? Because it seems like we've talked about Rome having this sort of shocking time of it's not a prosperous time. That also seems to be true for the Etruscans. What we do know from archaeological records is that trade goods have really dried up. So people aren't buying and selling in the same quantities that they were 50, 70 years ago. So is Etruscan territory just ripe for the picking and you can just take an army through there and nobody's going to stand in your way? I don't know.
Well, and to build into that larger picture, whilst I am by no means an expert on what is happening for the Celts at this point in time, I believe that it's mooted that there have been some problems for some of the Celtic groups that we're talking about, and that some of them have become sort of more militaristic. And this obviously is probably also driving some of the reasons for migration at this point in time. And it is thought, I think, that the Senones, if it is indeed this group that the Romans are encountering, are one of those groups that has become like a slightly more aggressive breed of Celts. And they have actually come from what is now modern-day Champagne, I believe.
One of the great theories that is put forward in one of the ancient sources is that the Gauls moved south because they are too hot. They just need to cool off somehow. Let's go south. And I hate to break it to them, but it's going to be a long way south before they hit somewhere cool.
I was going to say, yeah.
They would have been cooler if they went back over the Alps.
Yeah, Italy is not the place.
No.
Yeah, particularly southern Italy.
Yeah. So I feel like they took a wrong turn, maybe got a bit lost, and they're like, I'm trying to find somewhere cool.
Yeah. But this is not the narrative that Livy is building up here. I mean, it's kind of funny in a way that the Romans are taking this path where it's like, it's all our fault, when actually it might have been kind of a weird accident of history. But that's not the way they're playing it. What Livy tells me is that now that we have these military tribunes with consular power, half of which are made up of foolish Fabians, things do not get any better in 390 BCE. They are no wiser now that they are magistrates.
Damn.
Yeah.
I thought wisdom came with the position.
Automatically, politicians become smarter as soon as they are given an official title. Instead, these guys are preparing for war, but they're conducting the levy of troops like they're about to just go trotting out across the field and fight the Volscians, just like they always do. They don't seem to be preparing for anything extraordinary, in spite of the fact that they have been explicitly told to their faces that the Senones are awesome.
Well, this is what happens when you don't listen, when people tell you the truth and you just don't hear it.
Yeah. Now, on top of that, the Gauls are, of course, as we've said, even more riled up than they would normally be, because they have found out that the Fabians, instead of being punished in any way, have in fact been rewarded. it would seem, by being given an official state position and leading the Roman people. So they could not be any angrier at this moment in time.
It's a insult of a high magnitude. Not only
Yes.
did you not hand those guys over, but you've rewarded them. And now what?
Yeah. And this is where we get a little racist aside from Livy, where he says that the Gauls were naturally prone to uncontrollable anger / rage.
Wow.
Now, this is something that comes up in a number of Greco-Roman accounts, the idea that these barbaric people, I'm using my flesh rabbits here, Dr. G, are prone to extreme emotions, one of which is anger.
Yes, wow. And we can tell this because obviously they don't have moderatio. They don't know how to, balance things out.
Yeah, because clearly the Romans are so good at that.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. So their rage is fueling them at this point in time, and they are on a quick march, which is super speeded after all the anger, because they are absolutely spoiling for a fight with the Romans. They just breeze through all the cities in between where their main camp obviously was and Rome itself. They do, of course, cause consternation as they go. But the Gauls make it very clear to everybody as they're rushing past. Can't stop, can't speak, sorry, can't chat. We're dealing with the Romans. They're the people we've really got a problem with here. Yes, I would like that bread. Yes, I am going to steal your sheep. But don't you worry. It's not you I have a problem with. I'm not angry with you. I'm not angry with you. I'm angry with the Romans.
I'm having some emotions and I'm directing them accordingly. Out of my way. Don't make me hurt you.
Yeah. Now, the Romans, of course, had plenty of signs that trouble was coming. But what really...
All the people fleeing from the north being like, the Gauls are coming.
What's really freaking the Romans out, though, at this moment in time is the speed of the Gauls. They're like, this is like some sort of ancient blitzkrieg. Has someone given them crystal meth? How are they moving so fast?
Well, I suppose maybe they don't have a lot to carry.
Now, the Romans have tried to get their own army together as quickly as possible, but they actually don't get very far outside of Rome before they encounter the Gallic forces. So they meet at this now very famous place, Dr. G, where the Tiber and the Allia rivers converge, about 11 miles outside of the city. This is where the encounter that is going to remain imprinted on Roman brains for centuries is going to take place. So we're meeting at what will become known as the Battle of the Allia. The Gauls are already there and waiting, Dr. G. They've set themselves up well. They're making lots of noise because they are barbarians. Wink, wink. They can't help themselves. What are the foolish Fabians going to do next? I think we might have to leave it on a cliffhanger and find out next episode.
No. To position Alia, so if we think of Veii being really quite close to Rome, just a little bit to the north.
Yep.
Alia is north of Rome, but east of Veii.
Right.
So a little bit further over because the Tiber sort of wraps around and the Alia is a tributary that feeds into it.
Yep.
So I think we're in for a fascinating time. I'm looking forward to our next episode together. But before then, it must be time for the partial pick.
It definitely is time for the partial pick. I just wasn't sure if there was going to be a meanwhile in Sicily.
Oh, well, I feel like I'm going to save my meanwhile in Sicily, perhaps for the last episode.
That sounds fair.
Yeah.
All right. Then it is indeed time, Dr. G, for the partial pick. So, Dr. G, what is the partial pick all about?
The partial pick is about judging Rome as they deserve to be judged.
I feel like we've been pretty judgy this episode already.
Just you wait. The judgment begins for real now. They are capable of winning 50 golden eagles. They are amazing in every single category. There are 5 categories. They get 10 each if they do amazingly well. So our first category is military clout.
I would say not.
We haven't seen any militariness yet. We've seen preparedness for military encounters, but not an actual fight, unless we count what the ambassadors did.
I was going to
somehow
say
military, but they were supposed to be neutral.
They were, but I was going to say for military clout, do we count the fact that one of the Fabians managed to kill a Gallic chieftain? I mean, sure, he wasn't supposed to, but he did. Probably not.
No. Yes, I feel like we're on a 0 here.
Let's not be like the Romans and reward bad behavior.
Yeah, let's not. The second category is diplomacy.
Definitely.
If we could give minus marks, this would be the time.
This would be the episode to give them minus marks.
Yeah. So a clear 0. Expansion.
Most decidedly not. They're going to be lucky to hold on to their own city, let alone anywhere else.
Well, Virtus.
Ooh, again, I feel like minus points.
I was going to say, whatever the Fabians did, it was bad enough that even the Romans agreed that it shouldn't have been done.
I'm sure somewhere out there, Camillus is being very virtuous, but we don't know what he's doing.
Well, I mean, he's apparently in Ardea, which, not the worst place to be in the world, but not near Rome. And that is going to become an issue in future episodes. And lastly is the citizen score.
Well, again, I feel like it's pretty bad. Although the citizens seem also blissfully unaware of the real threat to them at this moment in time.
And if we follow Diodorus Siculus, this is a moment where the people stand up to the Senate.
That's true. That's true. Does that make? But that's the thing. They kind of make the. Unfortunately, in this situation, they actually make a terrible decision.
Proving once again why the senators should be in charge. And yet,
you know what?
And also they're persuaded to do it by the Fabians' dad. And so it's not like they've gone out and been like, this is a terrible thing off their own bat. They've been persuaded that this is a terrible thing by the guy who is most emotionally invested in the ongoing continuation of his son's lives.
And also, he persuades them, I believe, by drawing on just how fabulous the Fabians have been all this time. They're like, guys, like, look at the family I'm from. I mean, come on. We're lucky to have survived. You can't kill more of us now.
We've tried so hard to repopulate.
Yeah, we've done such an amazing job. Here we are, like 80 years later, standing strong.
Proving once again that we should not send our men out by themselves.
That's right. We get, this is, again, it's like a Krypton thing, like the further away from Rome we get, the worse we become.
Terrible.
Yeah. And so this is the thing. It's kind of one of the, this is where I actually kind of don't believe Diodorus' account in one sense. I mean, regardless of whether you're patrician or plebeian, family matters to Rome. Sure. So it's possible that what he said happened. But I still feel like it actually is far more likely that the Senate are protecting some of their own.
Yeah, well, it wouldn't, that we would be unsurprised by that.
Yeah. I mean, rich and privileged people trying to make sure that other rich and privileged people don't pay the price for a really terrible thing that they've done. Who's ever heard of that happening in history?
The consequences of my own actions?
Young patricians being absolute douchebags and just getting away with it.
So I get to keep my Ferrari? You
Dad,
do.
All I did was kill a Gallic chieftain. You can't take away my time on my Game Boy. Game Boy, wow. Really dating myself with that reference, aren't I? Xbox. I'm going to edit in Xbox.
So I think for the citizen score, I think we might be sitting at maybe a 5 because...
Ooh, God, that's generous.
Well, they haven't been directly attacked themselves yet and they don't realize how bad it is. And they have taken some like affirmative action for their own power, potentially being like, you know what, Senate? No, we're going to put those guys and save them.
Yeah, I know, but still like the lingering effects of plague, the economic downturn, can it really be as good as a 5?
I don't know, but it's certainly not terrible.
I feel like it's more a 3. I mean, Gauls are rampaging. They might not be in Rome yet, but they are rampaging.
Look, what you can't see, you can't fear. 4, I say.
Duh. All right. Fine. 4. Which means, Dr. G, if my math is correct, 4 plus 0 plus 0 plus 0 plus 0 equals 4 golden eagles for Rome.
Wow. Yeah, look, you had me stunned when you've said if my maths works. I was like, there's nothing to do maths on. There was only one score. I see what you did there. Rome. Yeah, look, I don't anticipate it getting any better next year either.
Let's face it, the citizen score is going to
It's going to go down.
Yeah, it's going to drop. Yeah. All right, Dr. G. Well, I can't wait to get into our next episode on 390 BCE. And believe us, listeners, you do not want to miss this.
Thank you for listening to this episode of The Partial Historians. You can find our sources, sound credits, and transcript in our show notes over at partialhistorians.com. We offer a huge thank you to you if you're one of our illustrious Patreon supporters. If you enjoy the show, we'd love your support in a way that works for you. Leaving a nice review really makes our day. We're on Ko-Fi for one-off or ongoing donations, or Patreon, of course. Our latest book, Your Cheeky Guide to the Roman Empire, is published through Ulysses Press. It is full of stories that the Romans probably don't want you to know about them. This book is packed with some of our favourite tales of the colourful history of ancient Rome. Treat yourself, or an open-minded friend, to Rome's glories, embarrassments, and most salacious claims with Your Cheeky Guide to the Roman Empire.